I think that it made us realize what it truly means to be an ally and to come into that space. And the first thing is owning and acknowledging our privilege and the fact that this, this is systemic and it is historic and it is, and we've all been a part of that.
My guest today is Mercy Tucker. True to her name, she has the heart of a lion and the power to match. Mercy is the co-founder of the life-changing organization Proyecto Te Veo, which she co-founded in the Dominican Republic in 2009. Living in the barrio with her own young family, Mercy witnessed single mothers constructing any kind of shelter they could muster to put a roof over their children's heads. When an unusually strong tropical storm washed those homes away, Mercy took action to help, and Proyecto Te Veo was born to help women build incomes and provide for their children. A few years later, the organization expanded to Colorado, where it owns and runs a shelter for a different group of women, often not seen. The project helps women who are newly freed from either prison or sexual slavery, helping them transition to a brand new life. When COVID struck, a new need became obvious to Mercy. Working mothers who needed financial aid and education to buy homes for their families so they could begin to grow that generational wealth that is so long missing from marginalized groups. I absolutely love this conversation, and it unfolds layer by layer to reveal the depth of Mercy's compassion and tenacity. So please press the subscribe button, grab a cup of coffee, relax, and enjoy the story of how Mercy Tucker is changing the world. Hello, Mercy Tucker. Welcome to How We Change the World podcast.
Thank you for having me, Deborah.
I love you. Thank you. And I love your name. I haven't heard that name before. I love the name Mercy. You never hear it anymore, and it seems to have affected your whole life. So I think you were aptly named. Well, so you're here today. You're a friend of, we have mutual friend, great mutual friend, Sarah Davis and Tracy, who brought us together. She always brings the most amazing people to me, so I'm grateful to her for that. And this is actually part of her Seeds of Giving fundraiser for September and October. So that's why we're talking. That's why I'm talking with you today and learning more about Proyecto Te Veo. So we'll get back to that a little bit later about how this works and how the fundraising works. But I want to jump right into your story and learn about Proyecto Te Veo. So let's see. Before we learn much about you, can you just talk about what Proyecto Te Veo actually is, like what the mission is, and maybe those three main areas that you focus on?
Yes. So Proyecto Te Veo is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And our mission is, and always has been, to see women take ownership of their lives. We believe that when a woman's life changes, it changes everything. And we have seen that be confirmed over and over again. Mm-hmm. And so that is what we are all about. We got our start in 2009 in the Dominican Republic. And there is now a center there, a women's empowerment center there. Proyecto Te Veo is the name. And then
what does that translate to in English?
So Te Veo is I see you in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wasn't there another word before that?
Oh, center. Yeah, it's like the center.
Oh, the center for Proyecto Te Veo.
Center for IC. Yes, the ICU center. Yes. And then we moved our work or expanded our work to Denver in 2013, and there is now a house, Te Veo House, that is at the corner of Marion and Colfax in Denver, and it is a transition home for women coming off the street, out of incarceration, out of sex trafficking, just a space for them to get out of survival and be able to really decide what is next for them.
Yeah.
And then our most recent initiative, really where we're putting a lot of our focus and effort right now came out of COVID, and it's called Shared Power. And it is $10,000 grants for women first-time homeowners.
So is that, I saw also that has something to do with starting businesses. Is that yet another project, or is that part of that same initiative?
Yes. So Shared Power is both. There's two arms of it. There's the homeownership arm. So women who are independently owning for the first time with no one else on the title, this is who we're seeing get this grant. Giving preference to women of color, giving preference to single moms, giving preference to women with no financial or relational backing.
Yeah.
And then the other arm is the business owner side. And it's not for startups, not for women starting up a business, but women who have gotten started. You know, they have their LLC, they've gotten to a certain level of revenue and clients, and then they're just ready to take it to the next level.
Oh,
and
that's
where
great.
we come in with education, financial literacy, you know, marketing principles, leadership. We take them through a whole cohort.
I don't think there are organizations that do some of those things that you do, but I think you're very unique in that this almost sounds like you, the little bit I've gotten to speak with you, like just for a few minutes ahead of time, what a little bit I read about you, it sounds like you, if you were to take you and make an organization of things you care about, it would look like this, right? Because it's unique to every other kind of women's empowerment. So it's really reflective of your probably maybe your personal mission. Would you say that?
I would say that it definitely has to do with, I would say just listening and being aware of what's in front of you, being aware of what's in front of me, and all of us doing that as a collective together. And I think each of the initiatives have come out of that, of, you know, what is here, what's in front of us, and being led by that and into that, and also feeling met over and over and over again.
With the same situation, you mean?
Well, and I feel like in the DR, it was that, right? Like, just specifically being in the Dominican Republic, and as we started interfacing with women and seeing that, you know, they had all their own vision. They knew what their community needed. Like, I mean, everything was there. It was just us, you know, getting in on it and saying, let's work for your goals. Let's work for what you need to see happen. And then I think it's the same thing in Denver with women. It's that empowering.
But, you know, you see, and I'm asking this question more for people who are watching and, you know, often looking for where they can make a difference in the world. I feel like we all see a number of things every single day that maybe catch our attention, that, boy, that could use help. That situation might speak to you. So there's something, I guess, that we bring from our own personal, like it sounds like in your situation, like, yes, I see a lot of things happening on the street, but women speak to you, like you see the need that women need to be stronger, especially women with kids and single situations. So I don't know, I think we all tend to gravitate towards what speaks to us, maybe, who knows why, you know, in our past. But if you can find a need and find that something that relates to your inner voice that's always often speaking to you, it seems like it can make them the most powerful, or whether it's animal help or, you know, whatever. People find
I agree. I feel like it's that quote that talks about, like, what the world needs is for you to, you know, find your passion. And then to live it out. And I do think that there has always been something for me about being seen. I think that is very much what I'm aware of, is just across, you know, the board for most women. There is that in them, as far as what does it mean for me to be seen and valued and heard. And I think all of what we have done has come out of that realizing that when that's the case, when a woman is really seen, she just rises up, and she knows herself, and she knows what she needs to do next. And and we've seen it.
Well, I was going to ask you about the title of the organization, because when you hear Project I See You, it doesn't necessarily lead one to think, oh, this is helping women who've been sex trafficked or been imprisoned for something they may have done. or does it, just help people buy homes? But it's like the core of it is, I see you, you're important, you matter, kind of a message. So I like that a lot.
That is what has been true all the way through. Yes, is just that fact that I think that is probably what we capitalize on. What we do best is this has been our background, our experience is in that seeing and being seen. It's like both of those. And then it's like what has come of that has been, a center, a house, now women owning homes, women getting ahead in business.
Yeah. It's interesting because it almost makes me feel like that's the core of the problem, and maybe that's what you're saying, like, because it touches me like at a very emotional place when you say even the name and what you're saying. It's like, oh, it's not that it's a single mom with 3 kids. It's that she's never been seen enough to have the life that would allow her to provide without assistance somehow. So it's really a powerful emotional, even like a notion or an energy behind it that to be seen is to make all the difference in the world. So I love that very, very much. Well, let's go back. Can we talk about your life a little bit? Because obviously you didn't just start this without any background. I know you, first of all, I just want to say I think you're you said you're from Idaho. I think you're the only second person I have ever met. And, Colorado and Idaho aren't that far apart. Maybe no one leaves Idaho. The only other person I have met from Idaho, and it's called Eden, Idaho. So yeah, who leaves Eden? I don't know. I'm crazy. There was Kurt Bowen was an early guest on the podcast, and he's also from Idaho and also an amazing human being who's working in Guatemala trying to help with malnutrition. So far Idaho's 2 for 2. So must be a good place.
Yes.
Right. But you went to, but then maybe just start with when you went to India, because that seems to be sort of a pivotal point in your life.
Yes. So I had just gotten my degree in psychology in Southern California, and there was an opportunity to do a backpacking trip through India. I will say that was my first time internationally in an underdeveloped, country, and just seeing that type of poverty. And I think that it really stopped me in a lot of ways. I was aware that there was something that I was going to do with this. I didn't know what. Yeah, I knew that there was something I was going to give my life to, like when I was there, for sure. And again, it was like we had our backpack with a couple dresses we're washing out every night. I mean, it's like our mat. We were really just kind of going all the way through the country, and we ended up in Calcutta at the Sister of Mercy. Mother Teresa had just these different homes, and serving there, and got to see her. I mean, it was just the next year. This was 1996. It was just the next year that she passed away.
Really?
And
were you able to interact with her?
So that is a story. We ended up being there. She and the sisters had all had a chapel. They kind of do that. They were doing that every morning. And they were just leaving. And so people would line up along the sides of, just to be able to see her,
Yeah,
and
sure.
As she came out, she would just bless people as she, went by. And I happened to be at the front of that line of people, and she blessed me. And I think I was so awestruck that this is Mother Teresa.
Right.
And I'm actually being touched by this woman. And,
interesting.
And all of who she is. And so I just got so awestruck that I didn't move back. It's kind of like she would bless you and you needed to move back so you could let other people.
with you. Take me with you.
So she blesses me again and pushes me.
Oh, enough already with the blessings. That's hilarious. But she was not a passive woman by any stretch of the imagination, right? She's very, very strong personality.
To be able to do what she did, she had to have that fire and that,
and probably she probably also grew with all those years of completely being in such difficult situations and seeing people, for her that had to have whatever she started out, I doubt she was the same, and I doubt you're the same now that you were
Right.
the day that she blessed you, because you've been
Right.
through so much. That's
Right.
that's really, and you look, are you tall? You look like you're tall like me, or am I just imagining it?
I'm like almost 5'9", and so
Oh,
yes, like she was
we're the
reaching
same.
up. Yeah.
So she had to like reach up
Yeah,
to
she's
you.
like reaching, and then she's like, and next, and I just took it as I will be blessed. I will take that twice.
Yeah, I could use a double blessing.
I could use that.
Yeah. So how did that proceed from there? How did your work?
So then ended up getting my master's in counseling. That's what brought us to Colorado.
Okay.
Got married, came to Colorado. That was 25 years ago now. And that the master's in counseling ended up leading into working with a church that was in Golden at the time called Lookout Mountain Community Church, that had a relationship with a community in the Dominican Republic.
I think I got married in that church.
Okay.
Is it the one with the beautiful view of the
It's on I-70.
Yeah.
It's just
right off I-70.
Looking right off I-70.
I don't know why I can't remember. I hadn't even heard the name in a very long time. Yeah. It's a beautiful place. Okay. Amazing.
It is. And so we ended up, Greg and I both ended up at different times taking trips they would do spring break trips every year, and ended up in the Dominican Republic. And then they ended up deciding that they wanted to send people to live there for 10 months because they just felt like to have a presence where it was located was right outside of Santo Domingo, and it's called La Victoria. And so we said yes. It was at the time we had a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old.
Wow, that's a big jump.
And I feel like that is really what it was there was something in both of us that knew that this was going to be life-changing. And
pivotal.
I mean, of course it was going to be pivotal. And we were both willing to take that risk and go.
Well, what was the work that you were planning that they wanted you to do?
So it was all community. It was a lot of just working with the community. We were teaching English. We were teaching computer courses. And we set up actually a center there
fun.
Because it's just very much known, like in that part of the world, that if you can get, if you have English or if you have computer skills, it can mean work.
All the difference, in
the city, and then that can mean a different life. But what ended up happening is while we were there was a tropical storm, and it rained for 12 days straight. I mean, it just did not stop raining. And a little bit further out, we were already in the barrio, but a little bit further out, there were some women who had been squatting on a piece of land, in homes that were like corrugated metal, dirt floors. And when that rain didn't stop, it just completely flooded their area. And we found out later that it was actually a lake that they had squatted in. And so that when it rained, it just filled up, right?
They didn't probably know that, obviously.
And
they didn't have a choice.
Yeah,
more
really.
like it.
I mean, they just evacuated, and we ended up just being there and being able to do, just some relief work. And so we went home to hear from them what they needed. That is really where Project ICU got its start, was meeting these women and seeing how they were doing everything right. They were everything they could to take care of their children. Most of them had been left because it's a very machismo culture where, a man will.
So they were alone. They were single anyway.
And then go to the next and the next. And so then they were just left. So this is where it started, was just our relationship with these women and hearing from them. And honestly, it ended up being immersion trips. Like we started immersing women from Denver, then immersing youth, immersing families. Like
you and your husband were doing it together?
So it was, actually the other co-founder, her name is Angie Johnston. So both of our families had gone to live for that period.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And so it was the two of us actually that just started getting these immersion trips going. And at the beginning we were just an immersion organization. The women started making anything they could out of trash so that they would have no costs on the front end and be able to sell it on the back end. Businesses started coming about. And
Like, what would be something they might make out of trash that would be saleable?
So like one of the things were like, even pop bottle, tops, a Coke bottle, right? They would take those and flatten them, and then they would find, whatever they needed to make it into an earring.
And people would buy them. They were saleable.
Yes, and people would purchase what they had made.
Really nice.
I mean, it eventually developed into, we got a designer, and
nice.
and she ended up designing the jewelry, and then they were making it out of, Larimar, which is the main stone there, and cow horn, and elements that were native to the.
Right. Nice. That's very. I'm just to interrupt for just 1 second. I'm just curious do you think the fact that you had young children and they had young children, like, was this relatable time of your life? I don't know if you were close in it. You had to be somewhat close in age or of childbearing,
Mm-hmm.
Did that?
Absolutely. I feel like it just allowed us to, I would bring them out with me into, to the campo, and our children would be playing together. I mean, our children were going to the schools. So yes, it did. It felt like very much that. And it also felt like, because we were learning the culture and language, and, it put us in a position to be learning all the way around from that, from them. And
right. So it wasn't like, here come the white people to help the brown people. It wasn't like, because this is a lot we hear in Africa and stuff. When people go to help, it's like the white savior coming in to fix the brown people's problem. When you're living in the same place and you're raising kids and you're going to the same school, it's very different. You're helping. When it's mutual, it feels very different. That's much more empowering, I think, for people.
Yeah, I feel like I really do exactly what you just said. Yes, yes, and yes. And I'm aware too that the organization that we went with, it was called Harvest Ministries. They were ahead of their time at that time, because their whole premise was, we're building relationship. This all has to be built on relationship.
Yeah.
And so we went in that way. And I can just say that even what you can see now, 20 years later, there is an empowerment center. It's run by local leaders. They are their own equivalent to a 501c3 in the Dominican Republic.
That's amazing. That's great.
That to start on that premise has, right. It really has become theirs. And I think from the very beginning, we knew they know their community. They know what is needed. So how do we get behind it?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So you left though. How long did you end up staying? And were you in the other co-founder? I'm so sorry. What's her first name?
Her name was Angie. Angie Johnston.
Yeah. And she still works. She's still active.
She's still a part of,
So did you both your families come back at the same time? And why did you leave? Was it just up? Was the project up?
Yeah. So we were there actually for 4 years. Their family was there for 1.5 years. And a lot of theirs was they had kids that were a little older that needed to get back and get into school. And we were able to stay longer and just kind of finish off what we came to do, especially with that community center that we had started.
Yeah.
It came to a place where it was running and operating, and we knew that it was time. And so we ended up coming back. Something that did happen though while we were there was just the fact that we realized that it was in us and we wanted to adopt. And so we started that process while we were there.
Do you mean adopt a child from Dominican Republic?
Adopt a child from the Dominican Republic, thinking that we would leave with that with her or him. And the process is just such a long process in the DR that we actually came back to get her.
Oh, yeah. So you do have a child now who's born and raised there. Oh, interesting.
Yes.
And do you go back? Does she go back?
Yes. And so I think that was a lot of the impetus for us to adopt, was knowing that now we had this love for this, community, that we were going to be back all of our lives. And we have, like you said, many times a year.
You do.
Up until COVID, we did. Yes.
Yeah.
And knowing that she would just have that
connection. Yeah. That's beautiful. How old is she now?
So she's 13. Daniela.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. What is her name?
Daniela.
Oh, Daniela, pretty.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Danny.
So that's a great story. And then you have one more child younger than her, right?
Yes, as we were in the process of adopting, because it was just the process was such a long process, we did end up getting pregnant. And but I mean, again, that is just one of those that's bigger than us as well, because everything that we had signed had said, you know, when you take on an adoption, that if you get pregnant, that it will stop the adoption, and you will have to wait until that child is a year.
Well,
you just have
that
to
makes
reapply.
sense. Yeah.
Yes,
right.
just for the non-compete, and we understood that.
Right.
So when we came to the adoption agency, and they just said, we're just going to go forward. It's clear. So William was born in May 2011, and we went to get her in June 2011, and she was a year old.
Oh.
So 1 month old and a year old.
So what a great time for you to start another party organization, right? Because you've only got 2 babies under 1 year old. So is that when you started the center in Denver? Like just about the same time?
So we moved back, and yes, right after that we moved back, and we were very intentional about where we were going to live in Denver after, you know, living in the Dominican Republic. It just felt like we wanted to be in a space where there was just felt need, and that we were a part of that. And so we moved into the Cole Whittier neighborhood, and that is just where we started meeting women on the street and hearing their stories and realizing, like, oh, what could this mean to have a space for them? And a vision was just spoken. I mean, it was like, let's just start speaking this out. I mean, I feel like some of that is what has happened all along. It happened in the DR. It's, you know, the house in Denver. It's this initiative in Denver. It's, you know, having the vision for what, you know, knowing the need, and then having the vision for what needs to happen, and then just starting to speak it. And
when you say starting to speak it, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that look like?
I think it's just letting people in your life, in your circles, know what you are experiencing, as far as like these stories we were hearing. And it's so apparent that if they had a space to gather, that this becomes, you know, a place to be in transition and to get out of survival. And at that time, I mean, we were open to, could it be a coffee shop? Could it be you know, we didn't even see a house. It was that Open Door Ministries, which is a ministry in Denver, offered a house to see this.
But people don't just. I have a question, because you had a house given. So did that come from? When you say you're speaking it, and are you talking about with your not your husband, so maybe I'm sure husband as well, but also the other co-founder. Is that who you were? Is that who you're talking? And our
leadership, and like just our people that we, you know, have gotten to know in the city through. So
friends, just your community. You just start talking and talking, and then somebody literally comes forward and says, you know, there's this house. I'm kind of pushing it because I want to. Because even I would like to know, like, how do you get a house? Like, if you have a vision like that, does somebody offer it? Do you go knock on their door and beg for it?
It really was the fact that I was not only speaking to our community, I was speaking to leaders in the community. So I, you know, got to know this. I got to know the executive director at Open Door Ministries. I was speaking to other executive directors of anyone that was in this realm of women and spaces, and, you know, and they have Open Door Ministries has 3 other transition homes. And so I had put the word out. I was speaking that this is something we want to see happen. This is our needed background. And who we are. And this is what this is a need. And at the time, I mean, there really was not anything. Like there were one-night stays in shelters, and there were 2-year programs, but there wasn't anything in between. So we were really coming in to see that gap be
So they give you a house, and I mean, I don't know, did they literally give you the house and give it to the organization?
No. So it was it was their home, it was their house, but they ended up just saying, what if Project ICU came in and it was an old home that needed to be remodeled. What if we remodeled it for this purpose? And so again, at a fundraising event, I'm speaking about the vision and what we're doing. And that what came out of that was a contractor, and I ended up finding out that contractor was one of the largest construction firms in the country that said, we will remodel this pro bono.
So this is a Turner Construction, is
It's
right?
Turner Construction, yes.
So how was there just someone from that organization at the meeting?
There was one of the vice president's daughters was there, and she heard about it and said, I am all in, and I have a contractor. And then it just happened to be that it was,
or did it?
Not, right? Or did it just happen to be? It wasn't just a contractor. It was the best.
I think that, and that's also a really good point, that just you have no idea ever who you're speaking to. I was trying to get a book published one time, and I just couldn't find a publisher. I had self-published it, but I really wanted to. And I don't know who I spoke to who got this copy of my self-published version to the daughter of someone who owned a publishing house. Same story exactly, and then they ended up, and he goes, my daughter won't leave me alone. She's been crying, so it could be anywhere, I think is the point. It could be anyone or anywhere. We can't it's good to talk to leaders as you did, but also to just say, whoever is in the room, you just have no idea, and you don't know who they're connected to or what their heart is speaking to them or any other thing. So that's, I'm sorry to be so, I don't usually tackle people on the point so much, but this feels so like, how do you do it? I just feel like everybody always says, oh yeah, then we got a house, then we got this. I'm like, how?
Yes.
Like, I don't, will that happen to me if I try to do it? You don't know. So that's really, it's really helpful. I appreciate you letting me keep slowing you down and interrupting you because.
No, but I feel like there is something about the first thing is listening and connecting with yourself about what is this that I need to take a stand for? Yeah. What is my cause? I mean, I think we all, to some level, need a cause. I mean, I'm saying that to my kids all the time. Like, what's your cause? Because to live your life just for yourself becomes a pretty miserable,
it's pretty
lonely.
Empty. Yeah. Well, we see a lot of that around the country, certainly, and around the world to a little bit lesser degree, but that is who America has become. And I thought it was shifting a couple decades ago, and I think it did shift, and then it came roaring back, like the me generation, and so, but there's also so many people now who do want to make a difference. That's also growing so powerfully. I see women really at the forefront of this, but I see I see businesses join, whether it's about the environment or whatever part of the world they're wanting to help. It's definitely there, but I can always use a little push to do a little more. So, well, you're raising your kids really well, obviously, because they're I'm sure they're absorbing this from the minute they're born.
I'm hoping it's being absorbed.
Even if you didn't say a word, just they're watching. Actually, and which kind of brings me to the story of that you said about your husband, which kind of fed into this and his losing his job. Do you mind talking about that a little bit? Because that's really curious.
This was on what led up to this initiative, Shared Power. Which. I mean, it was definitely a part of it. I mean, a lot of it was the fact that we lived in the Dominican Republic and how that just, opened our eyes, adopting our daughter and, seeing the world from her eyes and how she's being, the things that are being said to her, the experiences she's having, right? Like you're aware of like, this is real. Like racism is
real, right?
Is here. Yes. Yeah. And then it was 2016 and my husband Greg was working at a Christian high school and just seeing some egregious
as a teacher.
As administrator, teacher, coach, yes, he'd been. I mean, at this point, he'd been there for 17 years. I mean,
he just took time off, but he had been there
taken
a long
a sabbatical
time.
while we were in the Dominican Republic, and then come back.
Okay, yeah,
and just very much in and with this school, and on board, and so came, as administration came to the other administrators and said, I think that there is a need for a conversation about discrimination that's happening, racial discrimination. I just think that these kids just need a basic 101 about, what it means to know someone else's story and what it means to, words that you say matter and right.
So important.
And so he ended up having a forum or a chapel at the school, and I
On
would
racism,
say on
you
yeah,
mean?
it was on like racial reconciliation, racial
Mm-hmm.
discrimination. Like we just let's
Mm-hmm.
have the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Is this
And with
grades? What age kids are
this is
these?
high school.
Oh, high school. Okay.
High school.
Pretty ready
And
for it.
yep. And within a couple months, he was fired. And it had everything to do with the fact that the words white privilege were said in that forum, and the fact that systemic historic racism was talked about. And
Oh,
there were
goodness.
parents that felt like he was making their children feel guilty, and
Hmm.
so that he needed to
Did
go.
they give him a ruse? Like, did they say it was for some other reason that he was being fired after 17 years? Or did they admit what the truth was?
They were never willing to own or acknowledge the fact that there was racism.
I wouldn't think so. Mm-hmm.
And I think that is probably, for me personally, I would say for both of us, but just it was a definite, marker in our life of what is truly happening with systems and institutions,
Yeah,
right,
you're seeing it as first up, as close as you can get to it, and knowing it's not just people saying it. It is happening every day. Shocking, really. What year was that?
So this was 2018.
18. Oh, so it was the time of the country was ripe for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it really was one where we, again, I think it's led us to all of what both of us are doing in our own ways now, because it's just the owning, the acknowledgement, the leadership that has to be there if you are going
things are going to change.
Yeah, if things are going to change, and if you are going to see marginalized community, be able to get ahead, if you're going to see equity. And that didn't happen, and the silencing, honestly, that
gives me chills.
Probably it's just so it's just you're blatant. Out and we aren't. Yeah, blatant.
Yeah. And before you go ahead, finish that thought.
Yeah, there was just a young one of the students, a young black young woman who, her name is Mia, who just stood up, and I mean, right, last social credit, I mean, with friends, like, just she was just willing to do that, to say, no, this is real and this is here. Greg had been hearing this from most all of the students that were minorities in the school, but she was one that was willing to stand up. And what ended up coming of it was that there was a lawyer who was just counseling with us, and he happened to be the head of the Anti-Defamation League, and heard the story and said, I'm going to take this on pro bono. I will
really?
Not, yes, I will not be paid unless, you get to the end and it's in our favor. So on a contingent basis. And so we ended up filing a lawsuit.
I'm so happy to hear that, because that was really like sticking in me, like that he just moved on. All right. Yes. What happened?
And I want you to know that I feel like this is where I'm aware that I became most aware of my privilege. I think, right, it is our privilege that we were able to do this and step into this, that he could sign, or he didn't have to sign anything, and he could just leave and not have to get that salary, like all of the things. Like, we were in a position to be able to do that. And I feel like it made me aware of my privilege and what am I doing with my privilege.
I see. Yeah.
And so we did go forward with that lawsuit. It has gone, actually, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And that being said, because they just kept appealing, right? So all of the cases, every time it went to any type of decision making, whether it be by a judge or jury, it would go in our favor, because they were seeing that there was, this definitely was retaliation. This definitely was like what we were saying it was. And so in that way, they just kept appealing. And what the judgment ended up being at the Supreme Court, with this Supreme Court, it's a conservative Supreme Court.
So
at this
when
point,
did it? Oh, so it's been in the last.
This was just in this last couple months. They ended up ruling that a Christian religious institution is not able to appeal in that way, like they need to have a final, like a verdict, that's what they can't just appeal
Unbelievable.
they have to appeal a final verdict.
Even this court said that.
Yes. And so that was in our favor. So now we are back to, we're getting ready to go to trial.
Can you name who it is? Is that a secret?
It's Faith Christian.
Faith Christian?
Faith Christian High School, which is now actually, is now been dissolved, and it's become Forge High School.
Oh.
I think all of this really did they took a hit. I mean, they lost enrollment. And I think that as far as, yes,
wow.
they got.
Can I just like applaud you? I mean, this took courage. This took energy. This took commitment. It took owning your privilege. It's like it woke you up to your privilege and then you acted on it. You know, that is, you and your husband are one in a billion, because it has had an impact on your life of like I said, you don't have to tell your kids anything. They just have to watch their parents. You guys are amazing. Really, just I'm so moved by this. My niece is Black, and she was not at a Christian school, but she was at Arapahoe High School. And I will name names. I don't mind. I think schools, school districts that do not stand up for the children of color, they need to be named. And I think other parents at that school need to understand. Now, the school did not do anything particularly egregious, but the abuse that, I mean, her mother, she's half Black, half white. Her dad is white. I mean, that didn't change anything for her. You know, she had, I just didn't know that she had been that, before that, nothing had ever happened to her in a way that she understood as being racist. She had led, I guess, somewhat of a privileged life in that regard. So yeah, she had to leave the school though. And they did not come to her defense, and they did not stand up for her. So, you know, it's not just Christian schools. Sometimes I don't think all Christian schools are this way, but there may be more Christian schools that are, you know, suffering from this malady at the moment, but certainly public schools are as well. So anyway, bless you for doing this. This is amazing. And so now, do you think the outcome is like, will be in this year, or do you know, like, when the trial?
I think we're waiting to see once all of the evidence is, you know, submitted, and if they end up settling or if they end up going to trial. I think we want this truth to be spoken. And so that the only way to do that, is the best way to do that would be a trial, right? Because people are under oath, and and it does feel like there has been just a reckoning, honestly, for all of these past students. I can't tell you how many have approached Greg, alumni, and just
people, you know, students of color or white students.
Oh, all of both.
Okay,
just their experience of
what they.
Yes,
the same
not
type
being
of
heard of. And I yes, just over the top. I mean, and not just racism, abuse, right? Like, right. It's just like once someone actually takes a stand, then there is a safe space to say, "Let me tell you what my experience was." I mean, I think it has given us the reason, you know, to go forward.
Yeah.
It isn't just you.
Yeah.
It isn't
not
an isolated. It's actually about like, how can we get justice for those who have been harmed?
And how can you make change? Because this is literally making change. You have already made change in that school, in that community. This is not okay. You know, you said this is not okay. And so often it doesn't get addressed. So it just really fills me with so much gratitude, really, that you had this. Has there been a negative impact on your life from it, or would you say that's the case?
I would not change it. I would. I look back now, and I think that, I mean, definitely have you know, we experienced anxiety, and has there been, you know, just even my daughter was at the school at the time. She was a freshman in high school, and so I've seen that affect her definitely. Have we experienced just, you know, betrayal and all of that? No, you don't ever want to experience that. Right. But in the end, I know that it was for good. I know that it was for what we are doing now. I know it sent us on in the way that we had to go. And I am definitely not the same. Like I said, I feel like I know now that what I'm here to do is leverage my privilege, and it's to ask others to do that as well. And it's those of us who have much giving much, right? Like whether that be financially, time,
whatever kind of privilege you have.
Like, what are we doing with that?
Interesting. So did your husband go back to being a teacher?
So at this point, no, he ended up getting into a family business sold, and he has invested here in Colorado. So he's investing and managing properties, and he's looking at what it can look like to, work with like some low income housing that can be developed. So he's working in that right now. He's also is back coaching. He's East High School's head coach for varsity for girls and guys.
Really? Oh, and do you have a child at East right now?
So we did. So both our daughter and son, yes, our 20-year-old and our 18-year-old went to East.
Oh, that's great news to hear. Yeah. East is doing some in fact, I want to talk to them about their anti-gun movement. I went to East for a couple of years, so I have a close connection. Connection to. Just emotionally, I have a close connection, but also, it's always been a pretty progressive school. So, as far as social issues, so this just to pull this back to what we were discussing. So this is about when you decided to start opening when this is happening. It kind of put some wind in your sails for opening a home.
I think that it made us realize what it truly means to be an ally, right? And to come into that space. And the first thing is owning and acknowledging, just how acknowledging our privilege and the fact that this is systemic and it is historic and it is, and we've all been a part of that. And then I think
it has real life implications. It's not just a little bit of racism.
And not that I need to feel guilty about that, but I do have a responsibility, right? There is something about that, and what am I going to do with it? And I feel like also just it became very apparent that educating ourselves and using our white voices with other white voices, people to say this is here, this is real. That just became so much of what we were gathering people in book clubs. We were reading, listening to podcasts. There's a Seeing White podcast that I would completely recommend.
What's it called?
Seeing White.
Oh, Seeing White.
It's seen on radio.
I'll put a link to that on the show notes. Yeah.
So in doing that, I think it was also what we've always done as Project ICU is, getting in with those, women of color in our circles and just listening to them. And what happened was there was a single Black mom that ended up letting us know that she had always wanted to own a home. And that just would not happen for all of the historical, the sidelining, the, pushing
many
out
reasons.
that has happened. Yes. And so, and redlining and
gentrification
all of it, like that just hasn't been making that open or available to her. And we ended up just because of all of what we had just come through, and because Project ICU, this was in the middle of COVID, we were in a shift or a pivot because we couldn't immerse people in the Dominican Republic. We weren't able to immerse people in Denver. It was like, what are we going to be about? Of course, with women, valuing women, what does this look like? And so we ended up seeing her through the process of owning a home. She got to the end and she needed $10,000. And she's like, she just looked at us and said, I told you, this doesn't happen for people like me. Like, I'm not just going to reach back and find $10,000. So we just stepped in and decided, let's see what happens if we got this closed and we got her into a home, she got into a home, and it ended up going back generations. Her mother was on the street and how she could support her. It went 4 generations to her daughter.
So many lives change.
Yes. And so I just think we were aware for close up what ownership means
And
for.
what the barriers to ownership are.
Yes.
So she was within $10,000 though of being able to buy a home. So that started this new project, which you call
Yes, which is called shared power.
Shared Power.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about it a little bit more? Yeah.
Yes. And so, once we saw that that happen for her, we realized that we could be onto something as far as ownership. I mean, and as you get more and more into that industry, I mean, I think we all know this at this point, the only way to build generational wealth is through ownership. The only way to close the wealth gap is through ownership. It's the only thing. And so the fact that we could see that happen for those least likely, which a woman, I mean, right, we have only been owning since 1974, right?
Really?
Like, I mean, this was
really?
when right? Yes, that all got passed and that we were able to own homes.
I don't think I knew that.
In the last 50 years. And so it's like, as women and then women of color, I mean, right? It's like, we want to make sure this is happening for those who are least likely to see it happen and build that generational wealth. And so in COVID, we saw that happen for that single Black mom, but we also saw a couple of women-owned businesses that were about to close their doors. As we know, that was
during COVID,
very prominent and happening. Yes.
Yeah.
And we stepped in with support. And now one of those women-owned businesses is just this last summer on Yelp was ranked up in the top 10 of ice cream shops in Denver.
Can you name it?
So and actually two of our programs now, there are two ice cream shops. One of them is My King's Ice Cream and another one is Sweet Sweets. And
My King, did you say?
My King's.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
MYKINGS. And then Sweet Sweets, number 1 and number 2 in Denver on that Yelp poll.
So I want to ask you, how does it feel? How does it feel to see that kind of a thing? Any of the things, how does it feel to see women who've come out of prison have a place to go, or to see the Supreme Court? How do these things make you feel? Because I think that's important.
I feel like I'm so about justice. And I think that is, I think that, like, again, are we ever going to really see justice in our life? I mean, but but if these things, when they happen, even for one life, it feels like there's justice being served in some way. And there's something that just feels like wrong being made right, like repair.
So it makes you emotional. What do you think you're feeling? What do you think that feeling is?
I think I just have within me an ideal, right? Like the ideal is that that we all get to have equity. We all get to have access.
It's about fairness.
It is, and love, that we all get to. I mean, at the end of the day, it really just comes down to, what does it look like for us to truly love? And I don't just mean like, heartfelt. I mean like justice-seeking love.
Right.
And it's like, I think that's what it is. I so long for that for myself, for all of us, right?
Yeah. For the world.
For the world.
And and you're affecting so many lives, but you're saying even because people also say, well, if it saves just one life, and other people will say, no, one life doesn't make a difference. It's that old argument, but it has such an impact. And I know you're not just talking about one life. You're talking about you've affected so many lives, and you're still so young. You're going to affect so many more lives. Your children are going to affect lives, and that's where the ripple effect really starts becoming a movement. You just started something, and you feel it, and you live it 100%. And it makes a difference. I mean, I feel changed by talking to you. I feel very changed by talking to you. Just even the story of it doesn't, I don't know these people, but just the knowing that, that's possible. And if just more people could get on board. And this is how they,
I want to speak to that I feel like when we ended up really stepping out in this initiative, and it is about sharing power, right? And that is what our world needs, is it needs power to be shared. We don't need power over. We need power
Right.
in, within, and to,
Yeah.
right? Like this is the kind of power we need. And I think when we very first started stepping into it, we said $10,000 for 10 women. Let's just see if we can raise $100,000 this first year. It was in 2021. And I want you to know there was a question in my mind about $10,000 for one woman. Like, is this going to be like received? Like, because it's so much the case that it feels like in fundraising or in, philanthropy, it's like, well, how many, I mean, was it, hundreds, thousands.
I see.
Right.
Instead of giving $100 to 1,000 women, like,
yes.
so, yeah. Yeah,
it's like
10,000.
and I did realize, like, we're testing out, like we're
It is
testing
new.
out a theory here in some ways.
It is
like
new.
Is this really going to be something that people, and I feel like because of how we're seeing these women not only receive the grant, move into homes, get their businesses to another level, but then turn around and give back. Every one of them, I would say 100%, right? There now have been 200 applicants in our program. So it's only been 2 years now and 200 applicants in our program. And we've almost given the grant to 50 women. I mean, so.
Oh, you're kidding.
Recipients. And so people are buying into it, right? It's like, oh, this is, there's a place where I'm going to be giving, it is in this way, because it isn't just one life. It's like you said, how that one life, ends up affecting all of the lives around her and in her community.
Yes. And not only just those who are directly impacted, like the children who have a home or her sister who might move in or whatever. It's other women who have not experienced ownership themselves saying, oh my God, this is possible. Just that one message.
Yes.
This is doable in Colorado, the hardest place to buy a home in the country almost right now for anyone.
Yes.
It's really impactful to see that.
And I think that is what we're realizing, is that we are, as a nonprofit, right, we're able to come in and the gap that is there, we're able to be there for these women. And I think that it is like all of our applications that are coming in are actually from word of mouth, women saying, right. And in that way, it's giving hope.
Right. Exactly.
Right,
the most important ingredient of all of this.
Right. This thing that I thought I'd never be able to do, I'm seeing other women do it. And that means I can do it too. And I think it's bringing hope to those giving as well, because it is attracting people that are like-minded. People who are aware of that one fact. Like, if there is something I'm going to give to, I'm going to give to ownership, because of the sustainability of it, because of the generational impact of it. So I think people are coming alongside, and there's hope that's being built and grown amongst the people giving to say, this actually is what I've been looking for to give to, and
to make a true difference, a lasting difference.
And we have this in mind together. And I think there is the reason that people are giving is because, first of all, they're trusting that what we say we're going to do, we do. And they've seen it every time. I mean, every woman that moves in, any one of those donors, any one of them can be volunteers to help her move in, to hear the story, to be a part of it, to come to our business owner cohorts and, be a part of giving mentoring, advising, be a part of like seeing that business grow.
Before you're kind of skimming over a really important thing, which is that the letter that I saw that the woman wrote, who she needed $10,000 for, I think, closing costs. I can't believe they're that high now, but so that was what the money went to. But that's not, like, her experience was that people came and helped her physically move, your volunteers. People came and watched her children. The obstacles to moving are not, even as hard as money is, it's not the only one. There's obstacles all the way. If you're not connected in the community, if you don't have a family, if you don't have friends. And there was mentoring provided for her as well. So you bring a lot of you have this money, but you also bring these volunteers in to help with one of the things I saw with a workshop on how do you buy a house? Like, there's nobody knows no one teaches you how to do that. So it's a full service center.
It really is. I think what we're finding is honestly that the grant, of course, that financial piece, you have
It's
to
number
have
one,
it.
right?
But I honestly want you to know that it is the community that we're creating. Education is a key component. We're bringing in, experts in their field and professionals that in the industry that know first-time home buying, that know business ownership, right? And this is who these women are being able to interact with, ask their questions. It's a safe space for them to say, I have no idea how even to get started. I don't even know what question to ask, but I'm here. And and we're saying, and this is exactly where you need to be.
Right.
Because the only way to get there is to start. Right.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. So are these all women that are coming in as volunteers, or do you have men and women?
So what's amazing is the powerful women that this is bringing together. I will say that.
That's very
because we all know that this needs to happen for all of us. And so we get it. But I will say that the men that it is bringing, I probably have a respect and just for what that means for them to come in a support role, because most of them that get this are like, okay, this is happening. And how can I be an ally? Right. How can I take on this struggle as my own? How can I, and what can I bring to it? And I could name so many different men that have been a part of this, and it really is.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah. Well, so let's move to just the nuts and bolts of what's going on right now, as far as this fundraising, some events you have coming up. Because if I were listening to the show, which I am, even though I'm talking also, it's like, oh my God, I'm like, let me in. I want, it feels really good to know that this is happening. This is happening in our own community.
Yes, it's local.
It's local. Doesn't mean that people who are listening, because this podcast is not necessarily local, but there's a lot of local people who do listen. But people could donate from anywhere in the world, obviously. But as far as so what's coming up, and how do we make this tangible if we want to help in some way with it?
I want to say that internationally, the Dominican Republic and the center there, there is still support that we provide. And there's still support that they need. And so specifically, if there are those, listening that have, just a heart for the Dominican Republic, we're also looking to expand our work internationally. We had a scouting trip this summer to Africa. And so we're expanding it internationally as well.
Interesting.
And so just to say that there is that possibility to get in on our work.
I'm curious about that.
On that side. Yes.
All right.
Here in the United States, it does feel like what we're putting our effort in right now is Shared Power, this initiative, giving the $10,000 grants to see women become first-time homeowners and to see business owners get backup and support. But it's something that we've moved in a couple of women in Colorado Springs. I think that it's becoming a program that really is looking replicable, like that if this is happening and we can get it really efficiently working, and I find that so many realtors, lenders are, at this point, we're not even putting word out. They're coming to us because of the fact that it's a way for people to close on homes that doesn't have all of the red tape of, that comes with a lot of down payment assistance programs that it actually is causing women to take this step because they have this community and they have this program. And so it really is fitting, it's coming alongside, and it's fitting in a way that other programs are not in Denver. And they're wondering if this could also be, possible in other states. So there is that we're looking at, does it look like we do that with a lending company that we do with a real estate agency that's national? But right now we are at the place where we are trying to raise $300,000 this year. We've just kind of upped the numbers each year as far as the number of women getting into homes. And we have $100,000 that we're looking to raise by the end of the year. and then that will only be, double next year. I mean, right? It was like
Sure.
our goal was 300,000 this year. And again, we are looking to get as many women into homes as we possibly can. And I will tell you that there are even right now 10 women that are ready and lined up for that grant. And so the need is great, and it's imminent, and it's here now.
And these are women that I imagine you vet them in some way to say, are they going to be able to take care, are they going to be able to keep the home once they get it? Yeah,
absolutely.
So
everything that we do, our application
and so forth.
Our application process, to be able to even receive the grant, they have to be at a certain level. They have to pre-qualify for a loan, right? And so that means that their salary has to be. So yes, like we are ready to give that grant to the next, woman that is in line.
Yeah. And I know that, given your whole story with it, racism and everything else, I know that you favor the program maybe is trying to help women of color more because that's who's been traditionally unable. But I know that there are other women who are white women who are in the same situation, and obviously you're not accepting. Except
no. Like it is any woman that is that is in this position of owning for the first time independently, and we've definitely seen white women, Hispanic women, Black women. I mean, we've seen them all receive the grant.
And could it be someone of any age? Could it be someone who's 65 or something?
Oh, definitely. We've had women in their 20s. We've had women in their 70s. Yes, receive it.
That's good to know. Yeah.
So it really is.
That's great. That's
and then just getting to be a part of this community, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's really what's setting it apart, honestly, is, there's a lot of cash assistance, down payment, there's a lot of backup for businesses. There's a lot out there. I think it is the fact that the women that come into this program, this is what's setting it apart, who they are and how they want to see it happen, how they want to see it happen for other women, how they want to give back. Like, that's what's setting this apart.
This is
and
just
what
beautiful.
That means for their children. We have donors that are giving because they're like, I believe that, they believe that stability and security for our children is their number one priority. And they're like, there's no better way to see stability and security for our children than to know that they have a home to come home to.
Yeah.
And so,
This is very emotional conversation. I am so moved. I really, I'm so moved in so many ways because I feel like it might be the first time. Actually, my guest and friend from Kurt Bowen, who I mentioned at the beginning, who's from Idaho and is working in Guatemala. It's a similar thing where I feel like this is generationally meaningful.
Yes.
This is not a quick fix. It's not even a semi-quick fix. We're talking a trajectory change for an entire group, an entire nation in his case. And it may sound like it may be, I mean, you're not even saying just in this nation. You might expand. You've got some big plans. You've got some big, it's like you're just getting warmed up. Okay. So let's get back again. So you're trying to raise 100,000 by the end of this year. And what are ways that people could help do that? And also just volunteer wise too, for people who don't have money to help, but want to help.
So absolutely can go to our website at www.projecticu.org. There's
Project ICEEYOU.org.
Yeah.
Which it'll be in the show notes, just so people know that. Yeah.
Yes. And there'll be a donate option, and you can, scroll down to whether that be Shared Power, this initiative, you can give in general, all the way to the work in the Dominican Republic, our work internationally. So there's all sorts of options to give there.
Where you want it to go. All right.
Definitely. And as far as volunteering, what you'll do is just on our contact page, there's a way that they can get their email, get us all their information so that they can let us know. Would you like to bring a dinner for a business owner cohort? Would you like to help move a woman into her home?
So
Would you
many
like
options.
to be a part of projects that come up in these women's homes that they move in? So there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved. Mentor, advise. Like if you have financial background and you want to come in and do some mentoring and advising along the lines of financial literacy, all those things are needed.
So there's two specific things I just want to ask you about. I guess we're getting kind of late. I didn't even notice how long we've been talking, but that's because I got so lost in everything you were saying. Two things. There's our friend Sarah Davison Tracy is team. That's what I heard. I said she's teaming with you to do a $10,000 raise in September and October, which would be for one woman to get a home, or I guess that's where is that what specifically her fundraiser is for?
Yes, it is for a homeowner.
All right. So I will have links on that. It's just because it's called Seeds of Exchange is her organization. And I'm bringing that up. It'll feed into the same funnel, but I like to support her work because every 2 months she raises money for someone different. And she just finished something amazing for a new sewing center in Pakistan. And she's done so many things. And so I like to mention her, and I'll put that link on as well too, because I do like it to it's not like she gets a cut of the money. She's just literally helping facilitate this, and that's how we heard about it. So I'd love to have it go through that. And the other thing is, you mentioned earlier that there was some type of a fundraiser in November. I think that people could attend, or is that an in-person thing now?
It is. It's in person. It is November 16th. It's at Mile High Station, 6 p.m. $100 for an individual ticket, but then we also have an option to sponsor the event at different levels, and $1,000 sponsorship will get you 10 tickets and be able to promote your business or organization. And then it goes all the way up to like a $15,000 sponsorship, which is a transformative partner who would be able to speak from the stage that night. Every sponsorship level just gives more opportunity to be promoted.
Sure. And tell us the name of that event again.
It's called the Night of Thanks and Giving. It's that Thursday before Thanksgiving.
Very good name.
And it will be just that. It will be a night that we are just giving thanks, and we're going to be raising funds for our
sounds amazing. I think goals. You can count me in on being there. I hope I'm here right then, because that sounds like a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I'd love to see, are there going to be any women there who have gotten, I guess you're saying yes?
Absolutely. Actually all 50 of them, we ask to be there so that they can be speaking,
interacting.
As people are, Yeah. And we can highlight their stories. And that will be very much about what this is just the stories that we have seen and lives that have been changed.
Unbelievable. This was surprisingly deep, and I didn't have much time, as I told you. Usually I'm like so prepared for somebody and I know their life story, and you're so understated. You're not on Facebook, you're not on social media. I'm like, who is this woman? And yet here you are in all your glory. Your story is also really, I think, deserving to be told, and so I'm so happy to meet you. I'm so excited to meet you, and
so good to meet you too, Deborah.
I will definitely do what I can to spread the word. Project ICU, perfectly named, and we will at least see you in November, if not before. So
okay,
it's been a joy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it.